Hey folks, Aaron here from Aaron's Practical Reviews. Let's take a look at the 10 to 18 millimeter on the Canon 90D. Now the 10 to 18 is a very lightweight plastic lens. It weighs about half a pound and it does have image stabilization. So it's a great walk around lens to places like this where I'm going to have it today. And where it's not so great is indoors in lower light situations like here, my studio with no lighting on. This is just an overhead light. So today I want to take it out and really show off what it's great for. And in my opinion, it's like on vacations, it's going to neat places that has a lot of like corridors and stuff where you want to have that wide angle on the 90D, but you don't necessarily want to spend, $1,500 on, say, the Canon 16 to 35 or the Sigma 14 to 24. This is a great option for people who are, looking for a budget friendly lens that's also really wide and has image stabilization. So although it's not great, as you'll see in some of this footage here, when you're walking around, it's still decent. The image stabilization helps a little bit on the Canon 90D, and it's great for photos. It's just a really comfortable lens to walk around with, and it does a good job taking photos. And it's just really good at capturing the environment you're in, especially if you're, the main thing with this lens, in my opinion, the 10 to 18, is the height factor. People always think, oh, I need a wide angle to get horizontally wide, but in reality, the wide angle also gets things that are extremely tall. So when you're standing close to a building that's beautiful from like top to bottom, or it's got all these lights, or just something cool that you don't want to miss and you want in your shot, this does a good job of getting it in your shot. Also, outdoors in just natural lighting in general, it does great. Like here with this train, you can see every detail. With the 90D and the 4K, it really is sharp from corner to corner. The distortion is fairly minimal. It's not horrible on the edges. It's just a really comfortable lens, like I've said, to take with you places on vacations and stuff. And it's even good in studio lighting, if indoors in studio lighting, in the fact that you can put it right in front of you really close, and it's so wide that you can reach up to your camera and hit start, stop. I feel like I should have music playing in the background of this. This was such a beautiful place. I literally just took my kids up here and we walked around with the lens and the camera, and they love seeing this place. And as you can see, it just does a great job capturing everything. Beautiful. And the 90D definitely helps. I mean, as I've said in many videos, it's just such an amazing camera. Another thing, speaking of the water getting on the lens here, it is not weather sealed. So I was getting a little nervous here when the wind changed directions, and it almost got me wet. And here we are walking, as I'm just showing the focusing on these beautiful flowers. And like I said, it just is a very comfortable lens. I think you could take this on any vacation, pretty much anywhere, and it's small enough, light enough. It's not going to be cumbersome, and it just does a great job. This is a photo I took that I'm going to get into later. But here's in one of those narrow corridors. A little bit darker situation, but the pictures are lit up, so it still does a good job capturing them. And then here it is, the shake you get when you're walking. I do have the image stabilization on both the camera and the lens there. So there's Legoland. They just put that in. That's going to be a nice little expensive thing. Now here's walking out, and again, the image stabilization, I'm just giving a good idea of what that shows and how it handles the darker situations. So as you saw there, it does a good job capturing the environment, and I think this is where its strong suit is, right here. This type of use, for me anyways. Everybody's different. Everybody's got their own way they're going to use it, but for me it's this. This is how I would like it. So now let's look at how it does with photos in, say, Lightroom. Okay, so as far as how it does with in the raw files, in the dynamic range, pulling shadows and suppressing highlights, let's take a look here. So here we go. Got a nice McLaren here. Got lucky enough to have this in the parking lot as we were walking in. And as you can see down here, does a decent job pulling this and making it still look fairly natural. You can see over here, this really brightened that up, and down in here. And then if you look up here for the highlights, it suppressed it a little bit. Not a ton, but definitely did a good enough job here pulling from the shadows to salvage this and make it look a lot better. Now next, something similar here. This just seemed really dark to me, so I wanted to brighten that up, and it did a good job in here. And then this is all I'm using. I'm using Lightroom. And whenever I'm doing cars, I always bump up the clarity just a touch, and it gives it this nice shine. I wouldn't do that with a, as a portrait or something, but for cars, I think that does a nice little, adds a nice little touch, that shine. Okay, so here, just again, trying to pull some of the shadows here. The sky was so bright that it just darkened the whole image, and I was able to suppress here a little bit, as you can see. And then the shadows, pulled them up, and it made the image better. I mean, it's still not a great image, but I'm just trying to show some examples here of, and again, this is in Lightroom, so I'm trying to show what this lens can do if you want to pull and push some shadows and highlights. Now here, blown completely white, was able to salvage a little bit, and then just brighten this up a touch. Again, not the greatest picture, but for demonstration's sake. Here, same thing. I saved a little bit over in here, suppressing some highlights. Didn't brighten this up too much, but it still looks natural. Had to straighten it out. And now we get into when it counts, which this is indoors. The shot was just too dark, too many differences here with shadows and highlights. Didn't suppress the highlights as much as I'd like, although it was cloudy out, so that might be the natural look out there. It's really cloudy, but it did do a good job bringing up the shadows, as you can see. I did bump up the exposure a touch, but so this is just some typical results you'll get as far as in Lightroom with some raw files on the right here, the 10-18 on the 90D. So I just want to give you an example of some of this situation, because a lot of people will also be taking photos, obviously, in not the greatest situation. So you want to know what it's going to do as far as pushing and pulling the shadows and what you can expect here. And it's not bad. I mean, it's not the greatest I've ever used, but it's certainly it's good enough to where you can make some nice differences and really enhance your photos. All right, folks, so I think that'll do it. Pretty much everything I have to say about that lens on that camera. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Otherwise, have a fantastic day.